Lapse the steering wheel here. Give me the steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on! Whoa!
Your leg, mate, please. Your leg.
How the f*** is this possible?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph. Did you hear me? From our radio. The rest of the race. Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track down that interstate.
I am so annoyed.
Boys and girls, your attention, please.
Hello and welcome back inside the Park for May for podcast number 913. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
A.K.A. Negative Camber. You know I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
Yeah, that's all I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to talk about Formula One news. As always, that's what we do. But before doing that, I got to go all the way to the east coast of our nation's capital, nestled in our nation's capital. Well, just outside of the capital, actually. She's not in the capital, but it's close enough. You know her, you love her, you love her, the lovely, the redoubtable.
Grace!
Grace, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, I'm still on the metro line, so I feel like that should count.
Are you? Are you in the loop?
Yeah, no, I'm outside of the Beltway.
Outside. Okay, the
I'm
Beltway.
right outside of the Beltway,
Just
but I am
outside
on
the
the metro line. Mhm.
All right, yeah. So if you had to, you could hop on the metro and hustle right downtown.
I mean, DC is only like 5 miles wide or something. I think it's like 10 miles wide. I mean, it's not a very big place.
Yeah. For a swamp.
Well, we figured it out.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you figured all that out,
We're here. We're fine.
Yeah, it's
The
good.
architecture's lovely,
It is. It's pretty. I agree. Tonight's podcast, I'm just going to say, is all about layoffs, getting let go, leaving. It's for some reason it sounds awful familiar to me, but I thought I thought this would be fun to talk about more of the same, right? Why not?
That's right.
Did we talk about this last week? I don't even know. 1 week merges into the next.
It's the story of my life. I mean, I had no sense of time before the pandemic. Now I don't know what day it is ever.
Yeah,
I don't know what retirement's going to be like. I don't know. I would joke that it's like when I was in graduate school. Like, every day is the same. There's just the days I have to go to class and the days I don't.
I know. I'm going to be like that meme, What time did you say dinner was? At 4? 4:30.
Yeah.
4:30? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that'll be me.
And it's dark at like 3. Who knows?
I know,
right?
the time change. I know. I'm still struggling with that. And, you've got cats, so I have 3 dogs. And when you have dogs, time change. What are you talking about?
They don't change time.
They don't change time. It's 5 a.m. Who cares? It's time we get up. Let's go.
Yeah, it always takes Levi a good week and a half before it's like, dude, come on, man.
Yeah,
you need to calm down.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little crazy out there. But anyway, some news to talk about this week. Some news to cover. Before we do that, I have to say a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. We could not and would not do this podcast without all of you. And we're incredibly grateful for your support, as always. So thank you very much. Yeah. So let's start out. Well, let's dip our toe in the lukewarm waters of departures, high-profile departures, shall we?
Okay.
Sure. We're going to start out with the man that shares the same birthday, not year, but day, with me and the awesome Sterling Moss. So that would be Damon Hill. So Damon and I were like this, Damon and I.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Damon.
You have a similar look, though, right?
Yeah, don't we? Yeah. I don't.
Silver fox thing going on there?
I don't have his really piercing dark eyes.
No, that's true.
He had great eyes for a visor. It looked great. Mine are bluish gray, so I don't have that. But anyway, it appears that Damon announced that he would not be returning to Sky Sports. So, like Johnny Herbert before him, I'm always a little surprised at what Sky is doing as they let Paul DeResta go, Johnny Herbert go, and now Damon's gone. Now, they have Martin Brundle. He absolutely gets the plot, does that Martin, because Martin's a super good guy and a Formula One racer of umpteen bajillion races and raced against the legends, and he's awesome. And Martin gets it, and he actually turned a career and got into broadcasting, and he's a fantastic broadcaster too. So he gets the plot. Ant Davidson, I think, totally gets the plot.
Yeah, I'm down with Ant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Ant is lots of experience in Formula One, lots of a world champion in Le Mans. I mean, Ant gets it.
Yeah.
And then there's Karun, snap oversteer Chandhawk, and Naomi, who for me don't possess the insight of the likes of Damon, Johnny, PDR, Martin, or Ant. I'm sorry, they don't, because all of those guys have been there and raced for years and years and years, and nothing against Karun and Naomi, but those guys are on a different level. They do have guests also, like Jensen Button, Nico Rosberg. For the U.S. races, they bring in Danica, but they aren't regulars like Damon and Johnny were, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I'll hold my comments on this situation, but it's odd when you juxtapose who they've let go versus who they've chosen to either hire or keep for actual F1 driver insight. To be fair, some former F1 drivers don't always make great broadcast professionals, and perhaps, I don't know, there's some rumor that maybe Damon's bias was part of the equation, as he was very perceived as being very anti-Max. I don't know that. That's
like being, okay, I was trying to let you finish, but I don't get this whole anti-Max thing. This is like MotoGP being anti-Marc Marquez. He does some crazy crap on the track, right?
Yeah.
So I think the idea of like somebody being like, oh, Marc Marquez, he's kind of dangerous, and people be like, why is everybody against Marc Marquez? Do you watch the races? Like, that's part of what makes Marc Marquez great.
Right. Yeah,
but
that's
it's also what makes him end up in the gravel traps a lot and makes him knock Joey and Mir over, and like all this sort of like shenanigans that is part of Marc Marquez.
Yeah.
So the idea of somebody just being like anti-Max Verstappen, like, do you have eyes? Are we watching the same race? He does some dodgy stuff out there, and maybe people call him out on it. And so I just find this whole anti-Max Verstappen thing, calling it what it is? I mean, I don't know. Nobody's out there going, oh, everybody just hates Marc Marquez because we all have eyes. And we're like, well, Marc is great. Marc ends up in the gravel trap.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, from my perspective and being a Yankee, I don't really have a knife in the fight, but watching the broadcast, you can tell who are Max fans or who are Lewis fans or who are
But what you want from a broadcaster isn't about fandom, right? That's my job, right? You and I, we're fans, and I hate Sebastian Vettel, but I love him now with the bees, right? Like, that's fine. I'm a fan. You're Martin Brundle. You're Damon Hill. Your job is to be like, well, here's how I see the situation, right? You aren't about a fandom in that sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I totally understand, and I agree with you. It's not about fandom. Although, if pressed, I would tell you Damon isn't a big fan of Max's, and that comes through.
Well, that's fine.
That's his prerogative. There's other drivers that aren't, other broadcasters that aren't big fans of Lewis or aren't big fans of. Many of them weren't big fans of Schumacher or whatever, and that's fine. That's.
Oh, Damon Hill is a huge Schumacher fan. We all know that.
Yeah, right. Then there's others who have no F1 experience or broadcast training experience on that team, and some who have a lot of broadcast experience and do a good job of managing the show. So, you've not every former driver makes a great broadcast professional.
Right.
Some do. Martin does, and Ant does, that kind of thing. And then not everybody. You got a broadcast professional. They don't necessarily. They may do better with some sports more than others. Maybe they're better at football than they are, racing or whatever it might be.
Right.
That's what I always liked about Lee Diffie. He kind of came out of the whole racing scene of sports cars, et cetera, and it was always kind of funny. He's had a great career, and I applaud Lee. He does a great job. But when they said, well, we'll move Lee Diffie over to the Olympics coverage. Now he's an NBC reporter. What they put him on? Luge.
Yeah.
Bobsled racing,
Yeah. Yeah, right.
What can we have him on? Well, we're not going to have him do
Figure
skating or
Right.
ice dancing. We're going to
Right.
put him on luge and bobsled and racing things, right?
Well, those are the same things I'm watching, so it's fine. I mean, I'm
that's
like,
good.
I was just going to say, doesn't Lee cover everything? No, he covers the things I watch.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he covers all the stuff I actually watch.
Right.
But those broadcasts, some of them, lean towards a type of sport than others.
Yeah.
But anyway, big news for Sky. I don't know who they'll get to replace him. I always thought, to be honest with you, and maybe he wants a whole lot of money that Sky don't want to pay. I always thought JB would be a great, because JB kind of just tells it how it is. Whether you're ready for that or not. But I don't know that he's quite as in your grill as maybe a Nico Rosberg can be.
That's true.
Nico just has these moments where he just pins a team boss or somebody to the wall about a question, and everybody is nervous or uncomfortable, including the audience at home. They're like, "Ooh," yes. I don't know. We'll see who they are.
I think, unlike you, who had the, panache to hold your comments, I will not.
Okay.
So I think, first of all, he's been there for 13 seasons, which I didn't realize, right?
Yeah.
So I think, that is a fair point. I mean, you have that in all sports. Just because you play the sport doesn't mean you're a good broadcaster, right?
Yeah, right.
I think that's a very fair, basketball, football, any sport, right?
Yeah.
But he's been there for 13 seasons. He's got something going on there, and he knows what he's doing. And the rumor is, although we don't really know, that he was negotiating his contract. So it's not like, even though everything is going to be glowing from both sides, as much as Damon Hill is, I would never describe Damon Hill as glowing, but as much as glowing from either side could be, they're both going to be like, oh no, it was a mutual breakup, whatever, right? Right, it's going to be, but he was, negotiating his contract and something didn't work. So I think kind of what you were touching on, which I think more is British bias and not so much Max Verstappen hating, because again, don't we all watch the same sport? And he's a bit of a dodgy driver, if you will, sometimes when he does on the track. But I do think that as Sky does get hit with this sort of British bias, and they are the international broadcasts, and so if you're in here, right, in the United States, ESPN carries Sky Sports, and I'm kind of used to this British slant. It's a British sport, so of course I'm like, of course they love the British drivers. But that may not work in other places, and Sky may be wanting to be more broad in who they have in the box, that it isn't just Damon Hill and Johnny Herbert and PDR, who are all British, right? Like there are other drivers in this sport, and so maybe one of the reasons is they're looking to branch out a little bit more in the international field as Sky Sport is trying to move beyond just England. So that could be part of it.
It could be, yeah. You bring up a good point. It is a very decidedly British crew, right?
I think that, it's kind of like saying the New York Yankees have a New York bias. Of course they do.
Yeah,
They're
of
British.
course.
It's their sport, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's a good point, Grace, because I think I wonder what Sky's deal. I don't remember when their contract ends with F1, but if they had a pretty good impression that either they're getting ready to renew it for multiple years or it still has multiple years left, either way, if it's going to be sort of the international broadcast that that the U.S. is going to pick up and play like they do on ESPN, then maybe Formula One, having grown in popularity worldwide and in the Americas, maybe they want to have a little bit more of an international crew. The challenge about that is that on one side, you may be someone who doesn't live in the UK, and maybe you're on the outside and you sense and feel that bias. And of course, I do. I can sense it. I'm not British.
Right.
And certain members of that crew, I can tell who they like and don't. But the upside of that is being a British-centric broadcast, they're spoiled for choice on some amazingly good Formula One talent like Martin Brundle, et cetera, that you could bring in that truly understand the sport at a granular level. And so we get much deeper insight and better insight as an international fan listening than we would perhaps in the past when we just got a feed and there was American crew. I'm not talking about Steve Matchett,
Right.
Lee sort of thing, but farther back in the past when you got American crew broadcasting on it, but it's not a sport they're steeped in. They haven't been around it.
Right.
They haven't been fans of it since in utero. To them, it's like it's calling speedboat races and America's
Right.
Cup races and Formula One, and they're just as a Anorak fan, you like that really technical inside information to understand the sport better because it's a complicated sport. And when you get a crew that's always doing a seeker-sensitive broadcast and explaining the most rudimentary elements of Formula One racing on every single broadcast season after season, it gets tiresome. And that's the one thing I do like about the whole Sky crew is that they don't do that. They're
Right.
not constantly repeating how knockout qualifying works. They don't feel compelled. And when I got into the sport, we've talked about this on podcasts before. When you and I got into the sport, the broadcast didn't do that. If you wanted to understand what they were talking about a certain element in Formula One, you had to go search it and figure it
find
out.
it out.
But as clunky as that may seem, and if you were a marketing professional, you say, yeah, but that's gonna impact our adoption curve of a fan, and the stickiness of the sport is if it's so complex that the fan doesn't understand what you're talking about and they have to go look everything up, that adoption rate is not going to be great. That's not really demand generation marketing we're doing here. So we need to figure out a way to explain it to them to make it simple and easy. And I understand that side of it too. So it's kind of a torn thing when you're trying to get new fans into the sport. You do have to explain it in very basic terms, but you don't want to alienate your anoraks
Right.
who get it, because then all of a sudden the broadcast becomes like white noise. It's just irritating,
Sure.
And I always felt like Sky always erred on assuming that their fans are very ardent Formula One fans,
Right.
that they knew what blue flags meant, they knew what double yellows versus single yellow meant, they knew, and so they didn't spend time explaining that, and we got into more deep analysis of the sport. Now I would say they've tried to offer some rudimentary things here and there, but they're still not over the top on that. Whereas other broadcasts over here in the Americas have, I felt, been too far to the seeker-sensitive type of broadcast and didn't explain enough.
I think you're right. I think it's also because they are seekers.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
so if I'm still like, what's a yellow flag? Of course, that's all I can report on, right? Because I don't know what a yellow flag is, right? I'm still at that level. Although I think that's funny because, again, we talk about when we started, when I started 20 years ago, the internet was just like a baby.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody doesn't tell me what the yellow flag is, I literally pick up my watch and go, what is a yellow flag in Formula One? And it'll tell me, right?
Yeah, right.
In 20 years, it's kind of nuts to me when I think about the fact that it was like, I used to have a phone where you had to push a button 3 times to get a letter, right? Like, you couldn't, if it didn't tell you on the broadcast, it was like, well, I don't know. I mean, that's part of how we became friends, was because it was just, I needed somebody that like understood and I could talk to and be like, what's this thing about, right? So
Right.
now I don't need a Todd or a Paul. I can just like, Siri will tell me, right? Or
What's
something.
an adjustable bib?
Right, right? I don't. But I think that not to discredit you, I agree with you, of course, and I think that especially, this always comes up with the Olympics, right? If it's a sport you participate in, I don't know how you watch the Olympics, right? Because it's all lowest common denominator broadcasting, right?
Yeah, it is.
And so I think that, of course, that is super annoying. I wondered if another thing that they might be taking, again, I don't agree with these things. I was just trying to think, like, what was Sky,
Yeah.
if I was Sky's side, what would I be thinking? Another thing is that they might be thinking he's a little long in the tooth. So Damon Hill won his championship in 1996. I was in high school in 1996. I'm almost 50. I'm just saying, like, it's not like Damon Hill is a Jensen Button. You could get somebody from, like, the 2000s or, like, the last 10 years that could be doing this, not somebody from when I was in high school and I'm not a spring chicken, right? So I could see that angle, too, that if maybe they could convince somebody like Jensen Button to go to a few more of the flyaway races, and maybe he's cheaper, because I'm sure it does come down to money. My guess would be it comes down to how much money Damon wanted and how many flyaway races he wanted to go to.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't know what else. I mean, that has to have wear and tear on you. Like,
it does, yeah.
I'm almost 50. I don't even leave my house. All they did last week was kvetch about how many races I have to watch. I can't imagine having to go to all these races, right, back to back to back, and having to be a professional and having to report on them and having to, dig around in the pits and, reporter stuff. So I'm sure there's probably some part of him too that's like, I just do I have to go to Asia all the time? Can't I just go to Germany? Can't I just go to Silverstone? Can't you make somebody else do that? And that these things would all kind of play into it, is that maybe there was somebody more recent. I think they should, when Alonso retires, they should bring on Alonso.
There you go.
I think that would be the greatest, right? Because he's kind of spanned a lot of the racing that Damon Hill hasn't, right?
Yeah.
And so that you would have somebody that's raced in hybrids. You would have somebody that raced, before that. You know what I mean? So you just have, maybe you can find somebody that's a little younger, that could be doing this, and they could be bringing something into the sport that, while Damon Hill knows a lot of the nuance, these aren't cars that he drove.
Yeah.
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 And so maybe that has an impact. But I guess at the end of the day, it really is just less Danica, and please don't hire Gunther Steiner. I think that's my biggest takeaway, whatever you do. Danica is like, and I love that Jensen Button doesn't even like hold his face together anymore at all. Like, I mean, he never really did before, but now he certainly is just like, oh, what is she talking about, right? Like, I'll just watch for Jensen's face. So, but yeah, have less Danica.
I will say on Danica front, when she started out, this is kind of like throwing Hench in the broadcast on F1 TV, right? Mm-hmm. Like Hench, great guy, raced in the U.S., good guy and all that, did not drive F1.
Right.
Was not an F1 driver, right? But he drove really fast cars, and he knows what he's talking about as far as just general driving, right? Yeah. And but he's done a really good job at F1 TV.
He has personality.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
I don't know that Danica has personality.
I would say that she's gotten quite a bit better though when she started, and I think because when she first started, I don't know that she had been watching a lot of F1 and steeped in F1 and all those sort of things. But I think now, she's starting to recall different incidents and different things, and I think she's done a better job of that. But there again, I mean, she's driven more and raced in more competitive races than a lot of people on that crew. Oh, I mean, right, because that's always going to be true in Formula One, in any sort of motorsport, in a way that it isn't with, football or basketball or baseball, right? She's done a hell of a lot of Indy races and a hell of a lot of NASCAR races.
I mean, even if you put together, like, Formula One drivers, IndyCar drivers, maybe not NASCAR, there's a lot of NASCAR drivers, but, if you put together, like, even that, it's still a very small sliver of people in the world who've done this thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, unlike football, where, like, every guy's played football, or we all played basketball in our backyards with our friends or something like that, street hockey, I just think racing isn't something you played in high school gym class.
No.
And so we have some less grasp of that as just regular people.
Yeah, and it's one thing to race, I raced in Formula Renault and something. And in her case, I raced Indy 500.
Right.
And NASCAR Cup. That's a different class, right? That's at the top of either of those series. Speaking of her, the interesting, I don't know, she's an interesting person if you dig into, I'm not going to dig into it on the podcast. This is really neither here nor there. But I remember a couple of years ago, was it a year ago when she first on it, and I kind of looked up her background a little bit, and I was talking to Paul about it, and he and his brother knew a heck of a lot more about her background than I did. But she's an interesting, you have to look at how she got her start when she was real young and what series she raced in, and then she moved over to England and raced in all the open wheel. And I mean, you talk about pay your dues, she paid the grind back then. She worked her tail off to get in those junior series and get in. And I just remember after reading that, I had a heck of a lot more respect for her. I remember watching IndyCar, I was like, you know. But then after reading that, I was like, holy cow, she is really, you know, dug in deep on that career. So, I mean, kudos. So, anyway.
So, yeah, I just think there's some things there, and we may never know. Maybe
I think you're right. I think
we'll
you're
write
right.
some tell-all book. I don't know, but
Damon Hill, tell-all book. Damn
I don't know that
you, Michael Schumacher.
I know that'll be like 90% of the book, right? Like,
Yeah,
and then it'll
well.
be 10% on anything else that might come across his mind. But
Yeah.
I just wonder if it's just, you know, it came down to money, and that there are these other things that they're trying to do, maybe aiming younger, less
Right,
British.
right.
That would feed into that decision too.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think there's probably some moving levers and pulleys in the background of making all of this decision, least of which could be on Damon's side, or even like JB. Like I said, they should hire JB, but I'm sure that's a money issue and a how many races issue and those kind of things. You know.
He lives in LA. He's not based in Europe,
Yeah.
so everything's a flyaway for him.
Yeah. Right. All right, let's talk about the next big departure that everyone was talking about this week. It's old Greg Popcorn Fart Maffei. And you may say, Greg who? Well, he's the Liberty CEO, and Liberty owns Formula One. So Greg, and Popcorn, that's his term, not mine. Greg announced he would be leaving the role at the end of the season, and head of Liberty now, John Malone, will step in as an interim. Greg... And I got to thinking about this as I was putting notes together. You know, Greg was at the helm when Liberty bought F1, as well as when Liberty bought SiriusXM, DirecTV, and the Atlanta Braves.
Boo.
So he's batting, I would say, out of those three, he's batting 500, right? He's had F1 and the Braves, which is probably making money. Sirius and DirecTV, not so much, right? And then he was also there when they bought MotoGP, but that's yet to be really impactful yet. So the jury's still out on whether that will be a home run or not for them. But I do suspect it's going to be a good investment for them. And if they can expand the sport beyond Italy and Spain, I think they'll do really well with MotoGP. Not that Italy and Spain's the only places that watch it, but those are the biggest markets, and that's...
It's like England, right?
Yeah,
Formula One. All right, it's the same concept.
Yeah, same concept. You know, to be a MotoGP fan and be an American and be an anorak on MotoGP is a bit odd. It's a bit rare,
Right. It's
right?
a lot more work. Mhm.
Yeah. So when Liberty bought F1, Malone made it clear. I watched this really interesting interview. It was on a financial news network or something. There was an interview with John about why they were buying F1 and what the intent was. And it was a longish interview, but I watched the whole thing. It was very interesting. Very smart guy. And he made it very clear that content delivery was something that they were moving away from. And he said anybody can deliver the content. What the important, this is, fiber networks and all that kind of stuff. And so what he said that they were doing is that they're moving away from content delivery in favor of content creation. So he said that's where the future is going to be for Liberty. So they bought the Braves, that's content generation. They bought F1, that's content generation. MotoGP would be content generation. SiriusXM, delivery. DirecTV, delivery, right? Content delivery. Mm-hmm. So I almost could see in time, maybe unless they've got a wildly successful, Sirius and DirecTV program going, which I'd be surprised. I could see them divesting of that. But anyway, Greg is going to step down. There's rumors, though, on the back of this that F1 might be for sale. But Liberty says that those are not correct. Those are just rumors. They say they're not true. And I don't know, Grace. Hat tip to Greg because he did get the Netflix deal at the right time.
Yeah.
He didn't I'm sure he wasn't banking on COVID and people are going to be locked in their homes and end up watching this series.
You know, a once in a generation
it's a
pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, I was totally betting on that, right?
Yeah. If he walked out and said, "Yeah, I just did bottled lightning," no, that was.
Oh yeah, I feel a pandemic coming.
Yeah. That was just luck of the draw. But if there's anything lucky about COVID, but anyway. But he did do that, and he had massive growth on the back of that, and that's to be commended. And, you know, to be honest with you, I got to thinking about it. I think Stefano's doing a really strong job in the role of F1 CEO right now.
Right.
So I think that's good. And I think they're going to be in pretty good shape regardless of if Greg is there or not. You know, I'm sure he's got other aspirations to do something else. And he's probably clearing the deck to go do that. But they've grown a lot since acquiring F1, and I wouldn't suspect they're a company that needs to buy growth because they're lacking it. Although I will say it's kind of Malone's style to go out and buy growth, you know, and growth potential and growth opportunity and content creation. So who knows? But I'll be intrigued also to see who they backfill this role with. You know, it'll be more of a Liberty financial market person, I think, than it would be anyone out of the Formula One world.
I mean, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
At this point.
And so I think that would be the case. But I'm also very intrigued, Grace, with him leaving. Exactly what will they do with MotoGP? You know?
Okay, don't mess it up, first of all. I just, you know, it's fine. It's good the way it is. Hands off. Content's good.
Right.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense to send somebody over there, right? It's what any company would do, you know, right? Like you would, we're going to buy Todd's house. I'm going to go look at Todd's house before I buy it, right? I'm not just going to buy it sight unseen and hope it all goes well, right? So, I mean, that makes sense that, you know, if you're about to take this acquisition of any size, you're going to send somebody over there to, you know, take a look at it. You're not just going to be like, oh, sure, Dorna is going to leave it fine, right? They're going to torch the place. And then they're like, well, you already paid for it, right? So I don't know that this, to me, I didn't see this as like, oh, this must mean Liberty's selling. I don't think that's the case. But I do wonder, though, that earlier we had discussed that Michael Andretti not going into Formula One may be because him and Greg do not get along. So does this mean now that Andretti will end up in Formula One, but he will not be in MotoGP? So that's fine. But I just, because as I've always cornered this story, if I have to live with Michael Andretti being in Formula One, I want it to be so personal. Like, I want it to be so personal that Greg left. And that's what's going to allow Michael Andretti in, right? That's almost as good as being like, Michael Andretti, no. Roger Penske, yes. Chip Ganassi, yes. You know, right? Like, it's clearly about you, Michael Andretti. That's what I want this to be about, because it'll make him salty, and I enjoy that. But, you know, maybe this is what happens. But I think, that aside, it made sense to me that, you know, Greg's going to go kind of, you know, kick the dirt on the tires a few times on MotoGP and see what they got. So maybe Greg's departure. Maybe Michael's behind getting him booted. I'm just saying, like, right? I love this angle of it.
I love
right?
the concept.
Yeah, that, like, this is all they needed to do was get rid of one person, and Michael Andretti's in, and all of a sudden Toto's like, I don't know, I love this guy, right? Like, I just want to see that, like, total 180, right? I almost said 360. That's all the way around. But I just want to see that total 180 of what Michael Andretti's going to say. And Toto just being like, "Oh no, it's fine now. It's cool."
Because it's funny, you know, Greg was so vocal about, you know, it'll be cold day in hell before you ever get in. You know, I'm gonna move mountains to make sure you don't get in. All of a sudden, he's gone.
That's right.
You know, so maybe, who knows? Conspiracy theory. Yeah,
I think that's what we're here for. Where's the joy in my life if I can't have a good Formula One conspiracy theory?
And especially if it involves Michael. That's always good.
Oh, that's the best one.
Yeah, that's always good. Let's see. In other departures, no, we're not done. No. We're not done yet. We got Damon Hill. He's out. We have Greg Maffei. He's out. And now, the shocker.
This is a big bomb.
This is a bomb.
Who knew this was happening?
Yeah, this is a bomb.
Yeah.
Joe Guan Yu is out of Formula One next year.
That's not the bomb you were supposed to go with. Nobody's going with that one.
Yeah. You know, I just realized I got this sticker on
Oh.
I just happened to glance over at the camera and I see I have this sticker on. I bet this whole podcast for you watching on YouTube said, what a weirdo. He's got like a blue smiley face sticker on his shirt.
Leave it on. I think that's great.
Should I?
Nobody
Okay,
would have
I'll
noticed.
leave
Yeah,
it.
leave it on.
I
What
had to
side
get
of
a
your
bit-
mood today?
It was funny. I went to the dentist and
They gave you a sticker?
yeah, I was in there. She goes, hey, what color do you like? And I said, well, I favor blue. And she goes, stamps a sticker on me.
Wow. I like
Yeah.
that. That's
It was pretty
I mean,
funny. I said, oh, gee, you didn't have to. So anyway, this is big news.
Yes.
Apparently, you remember that bloke that we all knew and loved, Charlie Whiting, who tragically passed right before
Yes.
the start of the season? And then they had a couple race stewards come in and kind of alternate, and then one steward ended up taking over for the last 2 years of those two. That steward would be Niels Wittich, right? Yeah, Niels just been first the news broke that Niels leaving as the race director with immediate effect,
Right.
and Las Vegas coming up. That was the first news, right?
I mean, right.
Then you let that percolate for a day or two, and you come to find out, apparently he was let go from this role. The FIA canned him
Yeah.
as the role of race director. He's had
Because
it
if
for
he-
3 years.
I mean, if he left, that's one thing, right? Like, we've all been in that situation.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something that's come up, and I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
a family
yeah.
situation or something that's got to go.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We're all done. But you fired. We have 3 races to go,
I
of which
know.
Vegas is coming up, which we have very limited experience with.
Right.
Who are you? I mean, we talk about Red Bull letting go of drivers midseason is crazy. This is crazy.
This is
what?
nuts. And,
What are
you
you
know,
thinking?
the severely bloodied FIA makes yet another drastic move, promoting the current F2 race director to F1. And the paddock from pundits like at Autosport and stuff like that said the whole paddock is just stunned by the move.
Nobody saw this coming, right?
No.
It's not like he was
No.
a jerk face and nobody liked him, or I mean, nobody. I have yet to see anybody that's like, well, I mean, even so, like with the Damon Hill story, I was able to say, well, maybe this, and you were like, what about this? What about this? This one, I have nothing, and it seems nobody has any sort of like, well, maybe he's too British or too old
Yeah.
or wants too much money or doesn't like flyaway races. Like, I have none of that here, and it seems like nobody else does either. That's how much
Right.
this was like a surprise out of nowhere.
Right. So Patriot supporter Melton, he's joining us live, and he said that he was overheard making fun of MBS's hair.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Oh.
it's bizarre because sending Niels packing is an odd decision, Grace, ahead of one of the most difficult races to direct in Las Vegas, right? And this will be a bit of a baptism by fire for the new director, Rui Marquez. And because it's a very complicated track, complicated scenario. We've only raced there once, and we had issues.
Right.
And, you know, this is like baptism by fire for the new race
And it's
director.
a road course, or it's
Yeah,
a city
street,
course,
yeah.
right? Thank you.
Yeah, and so there were some criticisms lately over the red flag and the VSC timing in Brazil that Niels kind of took the brunt of. But, you know, people have been upset at the inconsistency of race stewarding decisions. Well, that's nothing new. That's
No,
been going
right.
on for decades. If your nose is all bent out of shape because there's no consistency in race steward decisions,
Welcome to Formula
welcome
One.
to the party, pal. It's been going on like this for decades.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm still gobsmacked as to where the vote of no confidence for MBS is. I'm honest. I'm being honest. The FIA is experiencing a death by 1,000 cuts. They've lost so many senior, very, very sage, wisdom people, and it's just bizarre to me that nobody says, "Hey, what are you
He's
doing?"
the problem, right?
Yeah. What? Maybe he's the problem. All these people leaving, and it's kind of like what Haas did.
Yeah.
Maybe Gunther's the problem.
Maybe it's you. Yeah. I
don't know.
I mean, to me, the only way this made any sense was if this was some sort of like, it's not your fault, but you're who I'm blaming, right? Like, you're the person
the
that has to take the
scapegoat.
fault for this, right? And out you go. But because
Mm-hmm.
nobody seems to know. And for the new guy, good luck with all of Toto's emails.
Yeah, right.
Good luck. I don't know how you manage that.
Mikey, no.
Didn't you get to my emails?
Yeah, that'll be good.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, so then there was another threat of a departure. We're not done yet, folks. Just hang in there. This is all about getting canned. So you had Monaco. The Monaco Grand Prix. The Monaco Grand Prix falls into that category, Grace, of I love it, I hate it.
Yeah.
Why do we even race there, right? Now, a lot of listeners, I get feedback from they hate Monaco. There's a lot of listeners who don't. I fall in the former camp. I love Monaco. And I love when we race there. All right. And my first memories of Formula One when, I couldn't find my foot with two hands, was the streets of Monaco, the wet streets of Monaco and Lotus 72, and it was like, holy cow, what is that? It was awesome. And so Monaco was always seared in my brain, and I've always loved Monaco. So I'm in the former group. And the end of 2025 when their current contract ends, and they're going to extend it through 2031. Now, Monaco pays a heftier sanctioning fee for the race, but they also have been doing very well with the explosion of growth in Formula One, and that's all good, as well as that big new sponsor deal with LVMH, luxury brands, and F1. And the knock on there is that Rolex now is out as the official timepiece, and Tag Heuer is coming in. And Tag is part of the LVMH group, and Tag is also a big supporter and sponsor of the Monaco Grand Prix. So there's kind of this big tie-in. So that's really good for Monaco. And it's also really good because Paul continued to talk about Monaco. For those who are in the dislike camp, I get bad news. The track is not expected to change at all throughout the deal, throughout 2031.
So the one other road that's in Monaco they don't race on, right? Like
the little alley down there by Portier, yeah.
Right, like
yeah, I know.
Are you expanding this to? Okay.
I know. So that's, it's not going to change. They're not going to make it longer. There were rumors about making it longer, more competitive circuit. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. So I hate to tell you that. But in the end, part of Monaco's, it was always this thing, well, Monaco, just tell F1 to take a hike. But let's be honest. Part of Monaco's allure is the Grand Prix. And if I'm honest, well, they may or may not admit it, Monaco benefits more from F1's presence than the other way around. There's lots of places F1 could go, but Monaco just has this certain panache to it that the Formula One race brings to it as a destination point. It's opulence, it's playground for the rich and famous, and all of those good things, and the F1 race being there is sort of the creme de la creme. And for F1, Monaco represents this deeply seated historic race that has always been the crown jewel that represents the glamour and the investment and everything around the race, right? It's robed in luxury, and high in brands. And so I think Formula One enjoys that. So it's always been a really good match. There's core races, though, that I just think define the DNA of F1, and Monaco is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that.
But so is Spa, the British Grand Prix, Monza, Suzuka, and Canada, if I'm honest. And these, to me, would be the core tracks that should always be on the calendar. I would argue Germany and France have always been there, too, but whatever. We don't have them, but anyway, yeah, so good news, Grace. And I know there's not a lot of passing, and qualifying usually becomes the exciting point of that, but are you happy with Monaco extending?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have both a love-hate relationship with Monaco, right? I don't think I'm really in one camp or the other. I mean, I love it. It's Monaco. But I hate it because, it's Monaco, right? Yeah. Like, I always say, like, if that track was anywhere else, if you took that track and you put it in, Azerbaijan, we wouldn't go there anymore.
Right.
but it's Monaco, so
Yeah.
we keep going there, right?
Right.
So it's like I have a real love-hate relationship with that track, but
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think you can really get rid of it. I think that I agree with you. It's one of the like 5 or 6 core races that we should always have, and it is what people think about. I think if anybody's ever watched any Formula One race, that's the one they know. I mean, it made an Iron Man movie. Did any of these other tracks make an Iron Man movie? They sure did not. So, right, like I think that there's something that like that's what people know, and it's kind of like name one Formula One driver. Oh, Mario Andretti, right? Name one race. Oh, Monaco, right? Like that's the one
Yeah.
people know. So I think it's
It
hard
is.
to get rid of that, and I wouldn't want to get rid of it, even though, right, I agree that no, it's not my favorite track, but
Yeah.
in that
That's cool.
sense.
And this is right up Grace and I's alley. They have a brand new thing they're doing this year. Now, Grace has been watching long enough, and I certainly
Yeah.
have. All those years ago when the big
miss them.
livery launch, the new car launches were a big deal. And there was tons of money, sponsor money put behind these teams. A lot of tobacco money, and they would throw these big, lavish car launches, and the press would all fly down there, and they'd wine and dine the press, and they would take all these pictures and write all these stories and put them in their publications, and it was a big deal, seeing the new livery, the color, the car design, the drivers, who the new drivers were or who they're keeping. And so all of this was a really big deal. It was very exciting for a long time. Then came the interwebs, and someone decided that it'd be a good idea. Well, you know what we could do? We could actually just stream this thing over the interweb.
We could Zoom the whole thing. I'd be in person.
Yeah, this is before. We'll
I
just
know,
do it on
but, yeah.
WebEx or whatever it was at the time, right?
We'll Skype the whole thing.
We'll
It'll be
Skype
fine.
it. It'll be fine, right?
Great. Skype never causes any problems.
No.
Perfect.
It's like watching Tyson and Jake Paul on Netflix, right?
Oh my gosh.
And so the first, it all went down. If you're new to Formula One, this will be new to you if the veterans out there remember this. But when they did that first year with all these online launches, this is going to be the new thing. They went exactly how you think they would. So I'm in the technology world. In our world, we call that a FLOB, an FLOB, which is a effing lot of bandwidth. And so anyway, they that's what it was, and nobody saw any of the launches, and it was terrible. So now then they kind of fixed that, right? So now they can stream and they can get more bandwidth, more servers on demand, and those kind of things based on the demand placed on the network. So that's all great. But now Formula One, and I got to hand it to them, Grace. They said, this individual's just streaming your car launch at some exact. Let's make an event out of this thing. Let's go rent a space, sell tickets, and get all the teams, all the cars, all the drivers, all the liveries, all the sponsors, all there for a global launch of Formula One's entire package, right?
I like how you make it like we'll just rent a space, like Paul's garage.
It's the O2 Arena.
We're just going to go rent the O2 Arena, right?
Why not?
We're going to rent some space.
Right. So things get a little dodgy though about it. They're going to do that at the O2 in 2025, but the event, which will have all the drivers, teams, cars, everything. F1 has now warned the fans not to buy tickets on reseller websites as prices immediately jumped. So initially, tickets were costing direct from Formula One anywhere between £58 and £113.
Okay.
I don't know what that is. American, was that $1 million in American? I don't know what that is. So anyway, you'll have to do the conversion, folks. But anyway, that's what they cost. But immediately it sold out, and then all of these resellers online started selling them for like £1,000, right? And so Formula One said, whoa. So they've stated that any resale through an unofficial resale platform will be invalid. So be very careful because they won't allow the ticket. So this is going to be called F1 75. It's going to celebrate F1's 75th year. And I got to say right up front, Grace,
The odds are in my favor.
I know that it is a big deal. And I really do like this whole all get together, all do it. In the O2, I'd prefer if they went and did it in some of those exotic locations like they used to in years past where all the teams were. But anyway, I will be very upset if we do not get, which Grace and I have prattled on for years and years about this, if we don't get pictures of the driver sitting on the front tires, I'll be very upset. That's our favorite shop. We made fun of that for so many years now. Since 2005, we've laughed that every car launch has a picture of the two drivers sitting on the front wheels. Yeah,
there has to be. Yeah, it's a requirement.
And now it's a moral imperative. So
I'll be very disappointed.
I will too. I think they ought to get all 10 cars and 20 drivers and have all the 20 drivers sitting on the front tires.
Stefano Domenicali, we know you listen.
We know he listens.
We'll let you.
Line them all up, and the cameras are all headshot.
Yeah.
And have all the drivers sitting on all the tires. There you go, front tires.
I think that's a great idea.
That's your money shot.
I do want to put it out there now. Ferrari, if you wanted to do another dance number for us, that would be great.
That would be cool.
I'm here for that. You know, I know you're all about celebrating the anniversary, so 75th. Come on, you gotta have something big for us, Ferrari, right? Like, show the people why you're Ferrari with a dance number, please.
It's some exotic Italian architecture building that's probably 2,000 years old, and they have this, and this is an interpretive dance of the F-150 or whatever model it was at the time.
Yes.
And I was like, what the hell am I watching now?
Please. And it made it into Drive to Survive, and you had to watch Charles Leclerc just sit there like, what?
And then I got pictures of the still pictures of the magazine. Is like, wait, what Pink Floyd album is this from?
Exactly.
I didn't understand. So, and I'm a Ferrari fan, and it was kind of lost on me.
Nobody knows, but please
do it again.
Somebody does some sort of interpretive dance for us.
Yeah.
I mean, you're all there. You're in an arena.
Yes.
What are you wasting this space for? How much space do all these people take up? Please, we need some interpretive dancing, please.
Yes.
And
channel your inner diffuser.
Yeah, right. And we won't have to worry about whether or not Stefano is or isn't at the Red Bull launch.
Right. That was so weird.
We know he'll be there.
You have to go listen to last year's launch podcast.
He'll be there.
That was
Stefano,
so weird.
are you out there?
Are you out there?
Yeah,
I'm there. There's a lot of politicking going on back here at the
Maybe
moment.
I shouldn't be here, but he can be there.
Yeah.
He can be everywhere.
He could be there. He could walk out, you know. I think maybe they ought to rethink the invite to MBS, though.
Yeah, we don't know.
I don't know. He'll be drunk. He'll be drunker than Cooter Brown by the time he gets on the stage. You do not want to hand that guy a mic. He's going to get in a fight with Christian Horner again.
Don't give him a mic. Fly him in like at the Turkish opera. That's what we're doing.
That's it. Perfect. Like Lewis Hamilton, suspended on wire over the Turkish opera, flying into the stage, stumbling down on the stage. That would be perfect.
I'm here for that. Give me a call. We'll work this out.
You could fly MBS in over the crowd and land him on a scale, and he could weigh in and then immediately pull him up and hoist him out of the arena, put him on a plane, and send him back to France.
That's right. That would be great.
I like it. All right.
Cheers from everyone. Okay.
Melton said drop him in a dumpster.
The raccoons. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Bonk. Oh, sorry, dude.
What's up?
Oh, sorry, sir. Okay.
Like the boom mic guy, right?
Yeah, right.
Like bump him on the head a couple times.
That's what they ought to do. If I was a Netflix, I'd follow him around and just keep bumping him on the head.
I'm telling you, that's why I could never. I'm not mature enough to ever operate a boom mic.
Me neither.
I'd totally be like, what was that?
Yeah, I do that. Yeah. Hey, did you see who Paul caught up with this weekend?
I did.
Daytona? He was hanging out with Ruth Buscombe over on F1 TV.
Yeah,
they're like this now, he and Ruth. They're talking about car stuff and
they're charmers.
They're buddies.
That's good.
I know.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Good for Paul. All right, let's do some Albin's Cat, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, so we'll do it. Controversy, Grace. All right, hit us with some Albin's Cats, Grace.
All right, bear with me here, people. I'm not on again for 3 weeks, so I had to get it all in now because it'll be dead news if I wait till week 4 when I can share it with you. So buckle up. This will take a bit. No complaints. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations to Jorge Martin for winning the MotoGP World Championship. Congratulations. Good job right there. Woo. Good job. And for being the first independent team to win a championship, which, wasn't supposed to happen.
Beating the works team.
That's right. Nicely done. So, neither the sprint or the race were really barnstormers. except for Aleix, who understood the assignment, as the kids would say, and was totally a blocker for Jorge Martin, and that was great. We loved that. And but it went down to the last race. His fan club did not disappoint. I love that continues to be a MotoGP thing of these like random celebrations at races or these random celebrations when you win a championship. MotoGP did not disappoint, so that was great. And I just hope that Jorge Martin remembered to party on the same floor as the exit. Again, continues to be my advice when drinking. Same floor as the exit, that's always the best thing to do. And have a designated walker. These are all things that you should have when you've just won the World Riders' Championship. However, my favorite, my Albon's cat moment is if you ever watch the Friday press conferences, right? They have them for MotoGP, just like the Formula One one. But at the end, they usually make them do sort of like an unbox thing where they ask them some silly questions or like, and they write them down and then they sign the board. And I assume they sell the boards for charity. I don't really know because they sign them, right? And so they always ask them these kind of questions. So for this Friday's press conference, right, it's Pecco and Jorge, right, the two people who could win the championship. And the question they ask him is, if the other person wins, what do you want? So they ask Jorge Martin, if Pecco wins the World Riders' Championship, he must, and Jorge writes, invite me to his party. Very reasonable, right? You win, invite me to the party. That's great. Pecco writes, if Jorge wins, he should marry Maria, his longtime girlfriend. No pressure, dude. Pecco Bagnaia just called you out and was like, hey, you should get married if you win. So I hope somebody bought that board for Maria. They got it framed, and she has it hanging in her house already because she could be like, yeah, hey.
Yeah, see?
Pecco, he thinks we should be married. Let's get on that, right? None of us are getting any younger here. So I just thought, but it was so genuine. If it was anybody else, like if it was Marc Marquez, I would have been like, oh, he's just being a jerk face. But Pecco's being very genuine about this. Like, you should just marry her. What are you doing, right? Like, what are you waiting for? But man, to put that, like, that's what you should do. Well, now you got to do it.
That's hilarious.
So I thought that was pretty great. I also love that they did the prize giving gala right after the race. So then they did the press conference right after the race, just like they do in Formula One, and they were waiting for Jorge Martin to get there, and they finally were like, you know what, Mark, Pecco, you guys got to get ready for the prize-giving gala, so you don't have to wait anymore. We'll wait for Jorge. You guys go shower and get dressed.
You're right.
Because it's literally like 3 hours later.
That's funny.
So I was just like, it's a good thing that like Pecco knew, 3 races ago that he probably wasn't going to be a World Riders' Championship because, man, that would be hard.
Yeah.
If you thought, like, if it was just 2 points, could you imagine, Felipe Massa, right? Like, could you imagine what that would be like if, like, you just lost and now you all have to sit in this prize-giving gala together? Yeah. Great. That's great.
How fun would that be?
That would be terrible. But so I was like, well, there we go. We're all here. We'll just do this. So I also wanted to note that last week I gave apologies to Rubens Barrichello because we were talking about being a 1-2 like Ferrari used to have, and I, apologized because I feel bad saying that Rubens is a number 2 all the time and he was less than Michael Schumacher. And, I felt bad for that. And then he did the Formula One podcast, what is it? Oh, Beyond the Grid. And in the interview, so I'm like, well, I don't feel so bad anymore. This is just the teaser. I have not listened to the whole thing. This was just the teaser, and it was enough that I've taken my apologies back, Rubens Barrichello. He says, and I quote, was Schumacher better than me? I think so. But 51-49 or 70-30? I don't know. We'll never know. 70-30? You are not 70-30, my friend. 51-49. Yeah, that was it. That was definitely what you were not.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. I don't know. Who's a better driver, me or Charlie? I don't know. 51-49, 70-30. We'll never know. Who's the better driver?
Yeah.
Rubens Barrichello, 51-49. Come on.
51-49.
That was great. Now I have to listen to the rest of the interview because I only listened to that like teaser, but I was just like, really? Nobody thinks that. Nobody. 70-30 even seems a little genuine sometimes.
You're thinking 80-20.
Yeah, right? Like, but 51-49? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
But, fair enough. Nice job. And then I did just want to quickly bring an update to Hell's Kitchen because it's been a while since we've been on, and we did not talk about it last week. And it's just because bananas. This season, I don't know. I think they've just lost, like, whoa, it's just like everywhere this season. But I do want to say, like in my best, like Hell's Kitchen voiceover voice, last time on Hell's Kitchen, Egypt suddenly became the least annoying person on the blue team. However, Kyle has quickly jumped right in to fill that position. Yeah. I love Kyle, but he's so annoying, and I would hate him in person. But on the show, he's just like,
yeah, if it was me, I'd be like, no.
Yeah, no.
Give me your jacket, Kyle. You're not ready to be the head chef.
Nobody makes for a great show. But I don't know why Egypt all of a sudden is like, fine. He was so annoying.
Yeah,
and fine.
He kind of swallowed a great big humble pill, a humility pill, and now he's becoming one of my favorites out of the group.
Yeah, now I'm like, well, one talk
he's a
was
good cook.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, that's. Yeah. But like one talk with Gordon Ramsay, I need to talk to Gordon Ramsay. Like I need that kind of change in my life.
I need that kind of change, Gordon. Come on, man.
Good job. And then I think on the red team, I still don't know why they let go of Megan, and Anne Marie is right there, and you're going to keep her.
I know.
I don't understand you people.
I don't know. The red team, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a hot mess over there.
That is, but yeah. I think so in the running, I think Brandon has always been a shoo-in. He has the classic, sort of demeanor of.
I thought Joe was going to crash and burn, but boy, Italian Day, he's totally come back.
He sure. You're right. Yeah. He was going to crash and burn, but like Italian Day, he got all his confidence.
Yeah,
it was very Egypt. Like he's a very very smooth guy now. And then on the red team, I really want either Witt or Hannah to win it.
Yes, Witt can cook.
Yeah, and she's just like, we're just doing this, heads down, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want in that kind of a position. Like, your carrot's on fire, I don't care. Get that piece in the oven. We got shit to do tonight, right? Like, which great. And then I think Hannah is like the underdog, so it's always nice to see how that's going to land.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, that's funny.
But
good stuff.
But I will say that I do want Kyle to stay through the blind taste test, because what will be funnier than Gordon Ramsay have to blind feed Kyle anything? Oh, Gordon, are these your peas in my mouth? Like, it's just like the double entendres are going to be great. So you have to, Hell's Kitchen, you have to keep Kyle through the blind taste test and then get rid of him.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Oh, that's funny. All right, I got some headlines. I'm going to read just a few. I wrote several down, but I'm going to read a few. Let's see. Just as an FYI, a lot of hard work needed for F1 returns in Argentina. I
love this. Like, where do we start? Like, infrastructure, political
money,
unstable, financially unstable.
Yeah.
I mean, because technically MotoGP is going back to Argentina this year too, but that was the that's not going to happen.
That's kind of obvious.
Great idea. Yeah.
My next one, Sainz gets permission to drive for Williams in 2024 Abu Dhabi test. It's nice. It's so nice of Ferrari to allow and give permission to the driver they canned.
They mucked over. That's right.
In favor of a guy who's this close to retirement. Well, who needs that kind of permission, Carlos?
Well, gee, thanks.
Yeah, gee, thanks. Next up is Mick Schumacher speaks out as he's denied Ferrari move as tumultuous career takes turn. Now, the only reason I put that is because if there's any of you out there that watched that documentary on the Who that was narrated by Levon Helm, you will know that's one of my favorite parts of that whole documentary when Levon goes, which Pete Townsend said was a tumultuous time of his career. And my wife and I constantly to this day will say it's tumultuous time of his career.
That's great.
You got to do it like Levon Helm does it.
Again, this is for people. This is why you get married, right? The inside jokes. I think these are the things I didn't realize is that now when you're driving on the road or something, and when you go, did you see that? There's always somebody that goes, yeah, I saw that. So no longer do you have to try to explain to your friends. I saw a giraffe on the Beltway. Right. Somebody else is always with you to corroborate your story.
Right.
Holy cow, that was a giraffe on the Beltway, right? So. A benefit of marriage and inside jokes. It's all the inside jokes.
Yeah, it's like the other one in Tommy Boy when he knocks the door off and he goes and he opens the door and falls. He goes, "What did you do?" We say that all the time. Anyway, so there you go. That's why I put it, because it had the word tumultuous in it. Let's see. Abandoned F1 track costs £540 million to build, has never hosted a single Grand Prix. Any guesses out there in listener land which track that might be? Tick, tick, tock, tock.
I will
tick,
say,
tick.
has Dale Earnhardt Jr. been there to collect his vial of dirt?
Not that I know of.
Well, he better get on that.
Well, maybe he probably should.
Like his little Dexter kill slides. He better hurry up and get his jar of dirt.
It's jar of dirt. That would be Vietnam race that never happened. Let's see. Other headline: Joe Guan Yu lands surprise new job in F1 after being axed by Sauber. Stunning. New job. That would be as a potential Ferrari reserve driver.
Yeah.
And this one's great. I tweeted about this one. What do they call it on X now? Do you still tweet on X or you just post on X? So I posted it on X. Iconic 1980s chocolate bar brand now worth $1.7 billion to be new sponsor of F1 in groundbreaking deal. That's right, folks. Kit Kat is now the official candy bar of Formula One.
Well, Sergio Perez must be ecstatic. It's his favorite.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Give me a break, Grace. Give me a break. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar.
I honestly forget that tweets even make a noise until I watch Drive to Survive, right? And then it's like they'll be like, and then Todd said through the middles up to Ferrari, and it's like tweet, right? Yeah. Like I'm like, I forget that tweets make noises.
Yeah,
like who
too,
remembers that?
Yeah,
Right.
Nobody remembers that. Let's see, and then and this is F1 announces Canadian Grand Prix date move to rationalize the 2026 calendar. Well, that might have something to do with Monaco being moved to the first weekend in June.
That's right.
Thank you. So I think they're going to try to move. I think they're going to kind of flip them. Canada now is going to be tried to be tied in with Miami in May, and then Monaco moved to June. So that makes more sense.
So nothing will be on the Sunday Memorial Day.
Yeah, and look, if you're in Americas and you love getting up early and watching Formula One race and then turning on Indy 500, not going to happen. It's over. Yeah. Those days are over.
Those days of getting up early and then turning on Indy and then remembering that Indy takes 7 hours and I have to take a nap.
Right.
Yeah.
It's over.
That's right.
The days of drivers at Indianapolis watching the F1 race in the morning and then jumping the cars, nope, over.
That's right.
All over. The tradition ends now.
Way to go, Monaco.
Yep, way to go. All right, let's do some mailbag. Oh. Hey, this is from our dear, dear friend Gigi the Cat. I love Gigi the Cat. He is like the most awesome TPF supporter ever, and he is an awesome dude. And he is he's down in Australia, the Great Southern Land. And he asked this: with the new patent from Porsche for a 6-stroke engine and new regs for 2026, do you think Audi will develop it for their F1 campaign, or is it just too late? I think that is a great, great point, and I'm interested to get Paul's take on that too. So, Paul, when you listen to this podcast, weigh in the comments section. I know I ask a lot of you, but weigh in on the comment section because I'm interested in your take. Because I could see it working in conjunction. If it was me, it's my hunch. I could see maybe Porsche Audi doing something like that and already developing it, and maybe that that 6-stroke the patent just didn't pop in. I'm sure they were working on it for quite a while. I could see them doing that and really moving that engine technology forward into more of a rapid prototype area like Formula One, right? And a proving ground for it.
If they actually show up in Formula One.
As Grace and I said last week, if they actually make it to Formula One.
I think this sounds like a good proposition, but I
sure
don't
does.
believe they're actually going to show up in Formula One. So
I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know.
It's
so
fine.
Anyway. All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. But let us know what you think about this podcast. You can do that by going to theparkformay.com and sharing your opinions. Do it to Quorum's Philly, as always. And if you like this podcast, here is a novel idea. go give us a good rating on your favorite podcast player. Share it with friends, family, and strangers via social media. And if you watch the podcast on YouTube, you know, Grace, smash that like button, hit the bell, you know, do all that. That helps us out too. You know, everybody watches, but nobody goes up and hits the like button or the subscribe button or the bell icon. So you got to do that. And we would appreciate that. And we've got the Las Vegas Grand Prix coming up. So I will have to go find Paul. But until that time, when we come back to do it all over again, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Gambler, saying so long, Grace.
See you at the end of the season.
It's not what I feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out what it was like to drive a car fast, to drive on a certain circuit, to drive a certain type of car.